Mm-hmm.
If I'm a woman, I am a woman. I'm just a regular woman. It's just that I was born with, you know, organs that are more than, I'm blessed to have more organs than the next person has. But at the end of the day, I'm a regular woman. I'm just a girl next door. My name is Tatenda Ngwaru. I'm an intersex activist who's also based in New York as an asylum seeker from Zimbabwe. Intersex is a condition when a child is born with sexual characteristics where they cannot assign them to a specific gender. And usually people say it's when a child is born with ambiguous organs where people cannot determine which one it is. And usually, in simpler terms, people say a child born with both sexes. Because in Zimbabwe, this situation is really met with a lot of ignorance and hate and anger. And also, I am an activist, and I was standing up for intersex and transgender lives. And I do mention transgender because before I knew that I was intersex, I thought I was transgender because it was the only word that sort of explained me being different to the girl next door. And so these lives are considered illegal in Zimbabwe. So when I did this work, I got into a lot of trouble and judgment for doing that kind of work because I was being accused of bringing the Western culture, and I was being accused of planting ideas in people's heads. I would say I've always known that something was up because I was raised as a boy for 10 to 11 years, and I always knew that I'm not a boy. But it was when I was a teenager and I had something called hernia, and they had to have a medical procedure, and the doctor then found ovaries whilst he was doing that procedure. That's when I knew that I'm intersex. There was a lot of ignorance and hate and judgment, and because do not understand what it is, people are uncomfortable with things that they do not know. And I was advised, even by my own parents, to hide it because they didn't know how to get back to the community and family and say the child that we raised as a boy is actually a girl. Even the community, they regard it as shameful. So it is very hard for even an intersex person to love themselves or to be proud of themselves because shame is attached to who they are. It has been interesting since I moved to America 2 years ago because I realized even here the shame is still something that is very common in intersex lives. People are not very proud. Intersex folks don't want to come out and say and talk about publicly about who they are because there's shame attached to it. And it is really heartbreaking. And I've also realized that intersex is common on white people. The intersex people that I have met that have public faces are mainly white people, and it's not common in black culture. And that is something obviously that I want to change because I want to be the face for black culture and normalize intersex lives in the people of color community. Oh boy, when I found out that there are so many unwanted surgeries that are being done on infants, and I have spoken to those children that have become adults, and to realize that they feel robbed of their part and they feel robbed of something that they would have wanted to be, that they would have wanted to stay. And it is heartbreaking to see that, to realize that they are doing these surgeries, calling them correction of surgery. Who knows what to correct when a child is still a child? I would wish for a world where children can grow up and have a say in what should be taken away from them and what should stay. Oh, that fuels me, and that is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's because intersex, as it is just a marginalized topic on every platform. But also, I feel like even in the LGBTQ plus platforms, intersex is not entirely represented. And when it is by just one race. And that is something that I want to change. And I also want intersex lives to have representation on each and every platform that the LGBTQ has. Because you know what they say, charity begins at home. And if we do not find such acceptance and representation in the LGBTQ community, it will be hard for us to transcend that into the world and ask for acceptance if they do not learn that from the LGBTQ community. Oh, not at all. Um, that is something that I also want to change because even the few intersex lives that I have seen in the media, like I said before, it's only white people. There are no people of color. And people tend to familiarize themselves with something that they see on TV. They get used to that when they are shown that consistently. And consistency is something that is lacking in showing intersex lives. And that is something that I want to change. I want it to be common to see an intersex woman on TV. I want it to be common to see a black intersex woman speaking about her struggles or even representing something else, but her background as an intersex person. I want people to ask, what's up with that girl? And then people will get to learn that she is intersex after I have shown other gifts. I am a gifted woman, and I'm sure so many intersex people are gifted in other areas. And I want the media to be part of showing that beyond intersex lives, we can also be gifted, but also there has to be actual representation from the intersex people themselves. So there isn't any, and I would appeal to the media and ask them to be a part of this journey to help us break these barriers and show us more often so that people can learn about us through TV because that is the most common media platform in the world. It is overwhelming. Most times I don't want to get out of bed, but if there's something that I have learned is my life has a purpose. And this was given to me so that I represent this community. So I will never get tired. Although I admit on being overwhelmed by it so many times, but my purpose is for me to show those lives and make sure people normalize it. I've always said I believe in God, and I've always said, God used me to use this situation to bring beauty in a situation where it was meant to be ugly. And I want to change that so that people can see that, even people with struggles that are not intersex, that they can learn from me speaking up, that they can be inspired from that. So, although I do admit that it is overwhelming oftentimes, it is never a burden for me to do this. I really believe I was born to do that. I have a few people, and that's easy. My father, obviously, who has been the strongest pillar for me, and he told me that sometimes courage skips many generations. And when I was leaving to come to America, he thanked me for bringing that courage back. And that is something that really touched my heart. So he does inspire me to love more and learn because he also didn't know what was going on at first, but he was willing to learn. And that is something that I really learned from him, accepting to learn and accepting that you do not know and willingness to learn. I'm also inspired, obviously, by Miss Oprah Winfrey, who I've watched for so many years, ever since I was growing up. And as a black woman, to see another black woman really owning a table and claiming a seat on the table, that has really inspired me to have words, to always research, and to always speak for the voiceless. And I'm also very inspired by Ellen DeGeneres, who I really love, who as a lesbian woman has shown me that you can break barriers and represent millions of people just by speaking. and representing love. I want them to know that the reason why I'm sitting here and being able to speak to you is because I have given the best version of myself every morning that I wake up. And it is a choice that I have decided to take, to give the best version of myself, even when the world is going another way. Always give the best version of yourself and be proud of who you are. Nobody can tell you who you are. You feel it, and you should represent it. Happy Intersex Awareness Day, wherever you are, even if you're not intersex. I hope you share with the next person about this day. For me, every day is Intersex Awareness Day, but today we are celebrating that day, and we have a day that belongs to us. Let's make the most of it all year round. From me to you, all love.